Good evening, this is Brown at Brown, and tonight we're going to be talking about Here Comes the Boom. So, this was a movie that I had watched a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It was a kind of a pleasant surprise for me because, comedy is something that, I do enjoy, but it's not part of my usual big three, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. But yeah, so anyway, though, I'd heard good things about Here Comes the Boom, and I remember I found this, it was on sale. I'm trying to remember if it was Entertainment or Movie Train Company, but it was one of those places. But anyway, so it sounded like something that, would be, enjoyable, something fun, and it was at a reasonable price and, on sale. So I went ahead and got it on a hunch, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. So tonight was the first time since then that I had rewatched it, and it was just what the doctor ordered. So anyway, though, Here Comes the Boom was directed in 2012 by a gentleman named Frank Krushi. I hope I'm saying his last name right, but. Yeah, he's probably best known for directing Adam Sandler in three of what were arguably some of his best movies: The Wedding Singer, The Waterboy, and Click. And he also directed Kevin James, the star of this movie, in something called The Zookeeper, which I never saw, but it does have its fans. Anyway, though. So this movie, though, it tells a story of a school teacher named Scott Voss, played by Kevin James, and the school he's at is unfortunately the victim of several budget cuts, which is a problem that plagues many schools in real life and even to this day, in the year 2021. So. Yeah, that's definitely something that was more than a little relevant still. But anyway, though, one of the programs that's being cut from the school is the music program, and the teacher, let's see, Marty Strabe, who's played by the great Henry Winkler. This is a problem for him for besides the obvious reason of this being his livelihood. Turns out that old guy is about to be a daddy. So so naturally he's devastated, and as is the entire teacher body, because a lot of them are going to be out of jobs. So anyway, though, Scott Voss, he teaches biology, but lately he's just been kind of letting the class run itself. He hasn't been passionate about teaching in quite some time, but when he finds out about the budget cuts, he basically he takes it upon himself to try and raise money for the school, and they're gonna need something like 40, a little over $40,000, and so anyway, Scott Voss decides hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, and he decides to take up fighting, mixed martial arts, and turns out that one of his side jobs is he's teaching citizenship classes for people who are wanting to become citizens of the United States. And it turns out that one of the students in his class, a guy by the name of Nico, who was played by Bas Rutten, who is a real life mixed martial artist. He basically he and Voss make a deal. Basically, he'll help him. He'll give him extra time in teaching on the citizenship tests, but if Nico will help him train for for fighting. And so the two of them end up kind of buddying up and helping each other out as far as that goes. And so at first, Scott Voss, I'll just call him Voss. Voss gets his, butt handed to him, on a couple of occasions, but he gradually improves. And it turns out, he actually wrestled back in the day, like back in high school. But, so he's having to take a crash course in, fighting. But he, gets to a point where he actually gets pretty good at fighting. And so, the school finds out about it, as in, the students and the teachers, and, his class, the class he teaches, kind of, starts to, respect him a lot more. And in turn, he starts to have a passion for teaching. But, unfortunately though, there are some problems with, some of the authorities at the school, like the principal and a couple of the other, people within that circle don't like the idea of, one of their teachers, basically quote unquote making a mockery, out of the school, by, getting the crap beat out of them, in a fight, where everyone can see it. But basically, Voss, he's got the support of, his family and friends. And, basically he goes a lot further than, just about anyone thought that they could. And, but, there are some complications that come into play, and, the money that, he's raising, basically, ends up getting stolen. And because, he's been under the assumption that, he gets into, even if he loses the fights, he makes a lot of money. But he's about to get into a big fight. Joe Rogan, of all people, actually wants him to, fight in a, real UFC fight. And so, because it turns out that the fighter who was going to be on the cards with I think it was the champion or something, or at least the guy they were going to have, something happened to him. I think there was like a training accident, and so Voss is put in as a last minute replacement. And they find out that I think it was like on the evening of the fight, that all the funds that were being raised to help Stripe, the music teacher, all the funds that are being raised to help him out were embezzled by a teacher who basically had been lying to their faces the whole time. Not a teacher, sorry. One of the administrators. And so basically Voss, he decides, okay, I'm gonna, I can't just lose this fight and make 10 grand. I have to win this fight, because if he wins this fight, he'll get $50,000, which is a couple of thousand more than is required for the music program to be saved. And so or as well as the school itself. And so at this point Voss goes all in. And so that's the story in a nutshell. And I really enjoyed watching this movie again. And Kevin James is an actor who I kind of have a soft spot for, because back when back when let's see, I used to work in Deep Ellum, and back when we were still working over there, one of the shows that was on TV was The King of Queens. And so even though like shows like Friends or King of Queens, I mean, I wouldn't ordinarily go out my way to watch sitcoms, if I were by myself. It was one of those shows that, if it was on in the break room or if it's on a Greyhound bus, and I'm with a bunch of people, yeah, I'll sit down and watch it. And I even got to where, I kind of like the show, like, I mean, I wouldn't go out of my way to, say buy the box sets or anything, but at the same time, if I'm at a friend's house or a family's house and they've got that show on, I'll gladly, pull up a chair, and watch it with them. It was a fun show. And so then I saw him in that, and I saw him in a couple other things, like the Will Smith movie Hitch, and he was really good in that. I mean, Kevin James was. I mean, Will Smith was too, but I mean, Kevin James actually, showed, a lot of talent in that movie. I mean, because he pulled off, both funny and somewhat serious too. And I even saw him in Paul Blart Mall Cop, and I saw it in the theater with some friends, and enjoyed it. It was fun. So I knew that Kevin James was the kind of guy who, comedy, he could really pull it off. But he also tended to kind of pull off the whole well-meaning underdog role. And this movie, he does that kind of role rather well. Except in this case, he's a teacher, and so I mean, he brings his natural talent to the role. But at the same time, though, he manages to, bring some depth to a character who's facing, a problem that is unfortunately plaguing a lot of teachers right now. And so, I liked how, they took, something that, was a real problem for a lot of people to this day, and they were able to bring it into a movie that was, mostly a comedy, but, it was kind of a reminder that, hey, there are some people who, need some help out there. And so, but anyway, though, Kevin James did a good job in the part. He made, Voss a really likable character, but I honestly didn't know this my first time watching it, but apparently Kevin James, has, some real life skill in mixed martial arts. And watching him in this movie when he's fighting, I believe it. I mean, it is one of those things where, this wasn't like, a superhero movie where you can just, CGI a bunch of stuff and, make a really good fight scene, but it's obviously CGI. And I mean, no, this was, Kevin James really getting into the ring and, fighting with other people. And, when he gets hit, I mean, either it looks real or it is real. Like it's real, or it's like well edited to where maybe it looks more intense than it is. But I mean, the hits are real. The damage may not be, but the hits are. And so yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with that aspect of it. And I mean, I always like it when an actor can really get into the physical nature, of a role if it involves fighting or any sort of athletic prowess. And I mean, this was definitely a case where, I was very, surprised by, just how well, Kevin James was able to, I guess, put up a fight, as it were. And the fight scenes were actually pretty cool too. And this being, a mostly family-friendly comedy, you kind of know how things are going to turn out, at least towards the end. I mean, it is supposed to be somewhat of a feel-good movie that, after all. But at the same time, though, because, we have a character who is, as likable as Voss is, as played by Kevin James, because we like his character, he's someone when we actually want to see succeed. And because, he's being set in a position where, he's got a series of obstacles he has to go through. I mean, one, he's got the, obstacle of, an education system that, wants to, screw over his friend, or, I mean, basically, who is willing to screw over, classes that are considered non-essential, like music, and, basically is willing to throw, its teachers and its students by, consequence to the curb. He's got that obstacle, but then also he's got the fact that, he hasn't, fought since high school, and he's 40 something. And so, basically, he's having to really get into shape here. And that's where, the other actors really come in, because, he's got a support network that, is a rather eclectic group of people, and, they all have his back nonetheless. Bas Rutten, the guy who plays Nico, I love that guy. I mean, this is my first time seeing him in anything, and I didn't know that he was a real, life, mixed martial arts legend, but no, I mean, he's a pretty good actor too. He plays, Nico as a guy who, actually has a lot on the ball, as far as intelligence goes. It's just that, hey, he's got to pass that citizenship test thing, but, he's got his own, exercise classes that he teaches. And so it's really funny, watching him go from, teaching a yoga class, and then sort of sliding into teaching, Voss how to fight. And then, because he's running late, he literally rips off, the clothes he's wearing, to reveal an exercise outfit underneath, to go into another room, where, it's a bunch of, ladies on exercise bikes. And next thing you know, the whole room goes on to like a disco, lit, area. It's pretty funny though, but I mean, he brings a lot of physical, comedy into his, role too, because, he's got, a lot of, almost dance-like movements, or, just, I mean, it's like he has some physical, tics, or at least that he brings to the character, that really make him stand out, but just, also he's, just a, pretty cool guy, in the sense that, he's, got Voss's back, and, he's trying to teach him how to fight, but at the same time, he genuinely doesn't want him to get hurt. So, he, rather than, just throwing him in, into the UFC ring right away, he's like, no, we need to actually get you to where you're ready to get into the UFC fight, as opposed to say, go for the money, or something like that. So, he's a pretty cool guy. Also, let's see, you got Salma Hayek as Bella Flores, who was the school's nurse. And, Salma Hayek is Salma Hayek. She's, a really good actress, both, as far as, drama and comedy goes. But, she's also a very beautiful woman. So you combine the two together, you have a memorable character. But, she's, she plays, a woman who, Voss, kind of, has had a crush on and you get the idea it's been for a while. And so, I mean, they're definitely friends, but, she's, not one to ruin that, as far as, she's not one to take, him up on his offer, of going on a date, but she does care about him though. And, she's one of the people who, supports, Henry Winkler's character, the music teacher, and as well as, Voss's, crazy idea of, fighting, for money. And, she thinks, the idea is crazy, but she knows that it's coming from a good place. And so, she goes along with it. She, helps, patch up Voss, and, tries to, keep him encouraged, as far as, going through the obstacles, but she also keeps him in the know as to, hey, here's what's going on behind the scenes, as far as the administration goes and things like that. So, she's a beautiful, woman, Selma Hayek, she plays a character who, is a very endearing character who happens to be a very beautiful woman, but she also happens to, kind of give him some advice as far as fighting goes in a rather interesting, or I should say, awkward first date, and it's pretty funny. Dinner date turns into an impromptu fight scene. I'll just leave it at that. Salma Hayek versus Kevin James, and yeah, it's pretty funny. But some other people that pop up here are a singer named I think her name is Clarice, and it's just one name, but apparently she was a YouTube sensation, singing sensation, a really young singing sensation, but she plays the character of Melia, and she was one of the few students who, actually, took, Voss's, class to heart, and she's also like one of his, I guess, sources of inspiration, because of, her, willingness to, basically, do the work that needs to be done in her class, even though, say, for, her, father, wants her to, quit school, so that, she can help him out with, his job, because unfortunately, the restaurant that her father runs, is kind of short-staffed and strapped for cash. And so once again, financial issues are rearing their ugly head. And so that this is an issue that it's not just applying to the teachers, but, to the students and, their, parents as well. And so, but she also happens to be really smart, though, because, she also happens to, be, able to, work with Nico on his citizenship test. So basically, while, Voss is sometimes, training, to fight, she'll be, working with Nico, to, get him help on the citizenship tests. And there one of the ways that she does it is, she'll, sort of, put some of the questions to song. And there's a really funny scene where, Nico, he's, trying to remember, how many terms, the president of the United States is allowed to have, and also, how many years is in a term. And, he doesn't remember, and so she asks him, what his favorite song is. And, he says, faithfully, the Journey song. And so, so he sings it for her, and she's like, I know it. No, it's okay. I know it. So try this. And so what she does is, she basically tells him, how many terms, the president is allowed to have, and as well as how many years are in a term. But the way she does is she sings it to him, in the, tone and style of the Journey song, Faithfully. And that's actually what gets it, to click with Nico. And it's a really good scene because, they actually have in addition to having really good chemistry with Kevin James, Clarice had, because of, this, partnership, she has with Nico's character, she and Bas Rutten, they have really good chemistry together as well, because of, the whole unorthodox, method of, using Journey to, help with your citizenship tests. So, I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, there are also like a lot of other, real life MMA faces that show up. Sometimes like they're playing themselves, like Joe Rogan, and there's another guy. Let's see, Mark Delagratius, I think is how you say his name. But he plays, himself, and he happens to be a friend of Nico's, and basically, helps to further the training of Voss. And so This movie, I really liked how, I mean, while it was predictable in the sense that because of, the family friendly nature of the movie, I mean, it's almost guaranteed that, Voss is going to, come out on top in the end, and he's going to win the final fight. That I like the fact that they actually brought in, real life MMA people to, lend some credibility to, this, world that you're seeing on screen. I mean, yes, it's a movie, but they do try to go out of their way to, make it somewhat realistic in a sense that, you've got the, financial, situation that's plaguing the school, but you also have, people who are playing fighters, or at least people who work with fighters, and they do that in real life. And so because they're playing that role in the movie, it lends a certain credibility to it right away. And I really appreciated that. So that all that real credibility kind of goes hand in hand with the realism of the fight scenes. And so like I said, it's predictable because you know that Voss is somehow going to come out on top, but at the same time, because the people who made the movie went out of their way to make the world within this movie feasible, as well as the fact that the writers and the actors go out of their way to make the characters likable, or at least or relatable. I mean, it all kind of goes hand in hand to where you don't mind sitting down to watch the whole movie. I mean, you kind of know how it's going to turn out in some ways. I mean, especially if you've seen movies like Rocky, or I mean, it says on here it's like School of Rock meets Rocky, and that's rather appropriate description. So if you've seen either one of those movies, I mean, you have a feeling of how it's going to turn out. I mean, Rocky's so iconic. Just about everyone, even people who haven't actually seen the movie, they know the gist of it. So if you get that connection, then you'll probably know what I'm talking about. To where, I mean, you know how it's going to go, but you want to. This is a ride that even though you know where it's going, you have no problem getting on and going the whole way through, and you'll still get a good time out of it. Sorry. Anyway, though, this was a really fun movie. I really enjoyed it. There were several moments where I was genuinely laughing out loud. I mean, there'd be some snickers here and there, but I mean, a lot of the time, I was really laughing, and there were a couple of times where I had to remind myself that no, this isn't Friday night, it's just Wednesday night, and because I mean that's how good of a time I was having with this movie, and it felt like a Friday night, where I could just kick back and watch something fun, and this was nice. It was a nice break in routine for me, because I know I've been sticking with sci-fi, fantasy, and horror as of late, for the most part, especially horror, and I just wanted to do something a little different, something a little more upbeat, and I wanted to go out of my way to find something that was relatively family friendly, and Here Comes the Boom, they do a good job. Oh, and dang, I can't believe it, Henry Winkler, okay, the guy's already likable just by default, okay, but here though, the guy he plays, the music teacher, Strabe, he's just a really nice guy, very chill, very relaxed, he's very relaxed, very easy to get along with, and he's also passionate about his job and teaching music to the students, and Henry Winkler is the kind of guy who can play a likable individual in his sleep. And, anytime I've seen him in a movie or a TV show, I mean, even, in Happy Days, I mean, yeah, it's easy to kind of poke fun at, but, I mean, it's impossible not to like Henry Winkler. But here, though, I mean, he made me think of some other teachers I had. And I'd never had a music teacher like him, but I mean, there were other teachers I had that persona that, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, they have a job to do to teach the students, but they're going to make it to where, the students want to learn. And, they really cared about their job. They cared about the job and they cared about the students. They wanted their students to do well, not only in class, but in life. And that was the kind of, guy that, Stripe was supposed to be. And having Henry Winkler, play that part, was a stroke of genius, in my opinion. Just because, like I said, I mean, he can play, a nice guy, good person in his sleep. And, by all accounts, he's a very nice guy in real life. And so to have him play, this, the struggling music teacher, I mean, I had teachers who really liked that, way back in the day, and so that was something that further invested me in the story. It's like someone who was relatable. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Kevin James, was fantastic as, Voss. But I mean, at the same time, I guess there were certain nuances that, Henry Winkler's character had, maybe just because of, the years of experience that he had over Kevin James. But, it's just something about Winkler's character, really, got me right here, just because he reminded me of a lot of teachers I actually had in terms of, like, his persona and mannerisms. But yeah, I can't believe I kind of forgot to, talk about him. But I mean, so I'm just glad I remembered it now. But so yeah, this was a fun movie. I mean, it's rated PG, and I would say, like, as far as family friendly viewing goes, I mean, it's a good choice. There is one gross part involving Kevin James's character inadvertently puking on another fighter. But the way it's done, though, I mean, yes, it's gross, but in context, though, it's actually pretty funny. Basically, this was like one of his first fights, and I think it's like his third or fourth. But Henry Winkler's character, Stripe, the music teacher, he was supposed to bring oatmeal for Kevin James's character to eat on the way to the fight, because they're driving at this point. And Nico's in the back seat, trying to memorize certain questions and answers for the citizenship test. Sorry, I can't talk. But but at the same time, Voss is saying, wait a minute, you didn't bring the oatmeal? And he says, oh, damn it, it's my car. And so, he's, so Stripe's driving. And so Henry Winkler, he's like, okay, we can go back to my class, we can go back to my school. And it's like, no, we're already running late to the fight as is. And so then he remembers that he has some applesauce in, the back seat of his car, or at least in the back of the car. And so mind you, it's been in the sun for quite some time, but this is the only food that they have in the car. And, Voss has to eat something, before the fight, so he can have some energy, right? And so, unfortunately, applesauce that's been in the sun for hours is probably not the best choice, in the most ideal of circumstances. But when you're, having to go to a fight, within, a quick amount of time, and you're going to get the tar beat out of you, I think you can kind of do the math as to what the consequence of that would be. So, like I said, it's long story short, it's gross. This one scene, where he inadvertently ends up puking on one of his opponents. It is gross, but I mean, it doesn't last long, and in context, it's funny though. So that's the only thing I could think of that would be um, I guess you could say material that might want to fast forward, say, if little kids are present or something like that. But other than that, and of course, the actual, fighting, whether it be, warm up fights or the actual UFC fight. I mean, some of that can be somewhat brutal, but, at the same time, we're not talking like R rated or even PG-13 really. So like it actually looks like real, uh, MMA fight. So, but other than that, though, this is definitely a family-friendly movie, and it's a very well done comedy, and there's just enough drama in there to where I mean, yes, I mean it's meant to make you laugh, but it also shines a light on the issue of schools dealing with financial hardships, and even though this was made in 2012, it's an issue that's still plaguing a lot of schools today. So I mean, I liked how, I mean, as funny as this movie was, it did bring us somewhat of a serious reminder, you know, to the audience as far as like an actual issue. But at the same time though, it didn't bog you down. It wasn't like it had a message and was beating you over the head with it. It's like there is a message here, but at the same time, we want you to have a good time, but just, hey, remember there is a you know something real to think about, just for a little bit of food for thought. And I did appreciate that about the movie. And a lot of movies today, it's like they'll have a message, but they will bash you over the head with it. And it'll be like, there's an action movie, and it's the trailer sets it up to be, I don't know, like a really awesome I don't know, Michael Bay fest or something like that. But then you go see it and it's like message, 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 and then, oh yeah, here's an explosion, message, 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 explosion. That really gets tiring after a while. But this movie wasn't like that. It was entertaining, and the message that it had, it was done in such a way to where it was thought, it did give you some food for thought. And because you actually cared about the characters, though, the message went down a little easier. But also because it's something that a lot of people can relate to, and so I think that was probably the best way to have handled it, and they did a good job with it. But most importantly, though, it was a good time, and I really enjoyed watching it again. And as far as comedies go, this is something that I would highly recommend. So I'm going to go ahead and give Here Comes the Boom 4 5 stars. And I'm glad I bought this on kind of a lark way back when I did. And just because something's on sale doesn't mean it's lousy. It's going to be lousy. It's like, hey, you don't know what you're going to find, and sometimes you find a good movie. Case in point. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Here Comes the Boom. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to check out my review. And y'all got any questions, comments, drop a line, let me know. Y'all have a good night. Stay safe and cool. Bye.